Today we are learning basketball with Philip Rossman-Reich on Orlando Magic Daily, the fan-sided Magic podcast, Locked On NBA Magic podcast, host, covering the Magic for years now. How you doing today, Phil? Excited to get talking here.
I am doing good. Nice to have the team back from Europe. Good to see them again. It feels like it's been forever, but we're excited to restart the season. Feels like a mini All-Star break. That's kind of what it's been described as to me. And I was like, yeah, it does feel like an All-Star break. I'm ready to get going again.
Yeah, and it's the Magic have almost had two of these. They had the Vegas break a little bit earlier in the season too, where they came back from. And I think to your point earlier, you mentioned maybe just at one of these games is how many away games they've already had, and I'm sure we'll get into that. But the schedule really takes a big turn from this point onward, where they've done a lot of the away games already. Most of their travel that is away is on like the Eastern Conference side of things, I believe, and they're just kind of set up for a lot of things to maybe turn right the rest of the way. And you were at practice earlier, maybe talking to them a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely feels like a reset period. And it helps that like we're halfway through the season. We're game 42. So we're one game past the midpoint of the season. So it feels like a good time to like take a step back, reflect on some things. Some of the heavier travel is done now. If I read my schedule correctly, the Magic only have one more road trip that's longer than 2 games. And that is the West Coast trip. It's a 4-game trip right after the All-Star break. It's my understanding the Magic are actually going to get on a plane first, go to the West Coast, and then start practicing. So they're not even going to practice in Orlando after the All-Star break. We'll see if that's a good decision or not. But like, it still feels like I think the general sense is that no one's really happy with how the first 42 games have gone. They have the same record as they had last year, 23-19. They're 22-20 in 2024, but they also see like a huge opportunity to control their own destiny really as they move forward the rest of the season. So I think they still believe that there's a lot that they can accomplish.
That's funny when you mentioned the last few records and how much expectations just kind of change everything. Like 2 years ago, exact same record, like best season. I've been writing like basically every year, but I guess these last one or basically this year and last year, I didn't necessarily write it, but every year up to that has been the best Magic season since, I don't know, like Dwight or Oladipo. So it's all this excitement, and then once you kind of build some expectations off that excitement and have all the stars and young talent in the building, it's like, all right, we're ready to win. And some things don't happen as fast as expected. One other aspect that might be a little underrated, I feel like almost every team is disappointed in the NBA this season in their like record or their standings, and it might just be a little more parity than everyone's used to too, where like maybe a lot of teams were expecting to be a little more dominant in an open field, and it's just an open field, and there's just competitive top to bottom. You can lose to the Jazz and the Wizards any night, even if they're at the bottom of the league. They're still competitive, so it's not, and the 3-point shot keeps everybody in it. So I think maybe there's a little bit of that too when it comes to the expectations for everybody. So that's interesting too. But before we fully dive into the season, I wanted to just ask you a little bit about your background with the Magic and what kind of led to starting Orlando Magic Daily in the first place, and obviously being a tenant on Magic Twitter there for what feels like over a decade now.
Yeah, it's been more than a decade.
Man.
Yeah. I mean, like, look, I don't hide this fact. I started off as a fan. Like, I grew up obsessed with this team, and like growing up, I was at a lot of games during the 95 run. I remember vividly going to game 1 of the NBA Finals. I don't remember much of the game itself, thankfully, but I remember vividly going to that game and many of the games during that playoff run. And I was just like obsessed with the team growing up. And as I grew older and got into writing about the Magic just felt very natural. And so like, even if I didn't know what a blog was, or, even before like the internet really took off as a thing, like I was writing stuff just for my own entertainment. And as I grew more professional about it and got like more training on it, it felt like this was an absolute direction that I needed to go in, or I needed to like explore. And I had a friend who did a high school program with me, a high school journalism program with me. He actually started Orlando Magic Daily. He was looking to bring on some help. He knew that I was a big fan. He reached out to me and said, "Hey, I can't run this thing by myself anymore. I need some help." And I joined him on that, and I've been with the site ever since. I took over ownership of the site. from him, kind of guided it through several iterations before joining Fansided, and have been, knowing that this is a small market that doesn't have a lot of coverage of the Orlando Magic. It's been a real blessing to be able to be on the ground with the team, to be, in the daily media group that travel, like I started traveling a couple years ago, but be in the group that, the team believes is like, no, this is a guy that we want around and can cover this team really, really well. So, that part's just been a blessing. It's, if you would have told me when I was 6 that this is what I'd be doing, I would have said that that's a dream come true. Like that cannot get better than that.
There it is. No, I mean, I can relate to a lot of what you said there, and just being around the team. But it's a cool story just to highlight you and what you've done to get here. I mean, you've been putting in the work, showing up and covering this team, up and down, and it has not been much up, while you've been covering it. That's only been the last few years, So I think that shows, some diligence there as well. Just covering no matter what happens, you're showing up every day. And I think, if you're a Magic fan, you've heard of Orlando Magic Daily and read an article at some point, because they're just, so many and so many quality, good coverage there. So, shout out to you for what you've been doing covering this team for a long time. We definitely appreciate it. And, I bet it's super cool to get to travel and hit some away games too. Did anything kind of lead to a breakthrough point there with just being able to have those opportunities?
Yeah. I mean, some of it is just, like I was working other jobs. And so I was working other jobs that wouldn't allow me to travel. And so it's just like, I was happy to just do the home games and do my day job and do this at night. And, 2-3 years ago, the station that I was working at, a TV station, downsized and canceled the sports show that I was working on, or combined the sports show with another market. And I was just thinking to myself, like, well, this is what I really want to do. I now have the time to try and pursue it and make it work independently, and see if I can make it work independently. I had the financial and family support to try and do that. And it didn't even click with me that, like, oh, I have the freedom to go on road games now. I can travel if I wanted to. And the first time I traveled, it was for a pretty convenient trip. It was, I was visiting I was staying with a cousin. I was staying with my dad. And then it was just like, oh no, like this like adds such a new dimension to covering the team. Like they truly appreciate that you travel. And it's a great way to just get around and see other teams, see other environments, and be with the team under a different context. And obviously, like the playoffs, it made sense. Like I'm going 4 times to Cleveland, booking a trip on a Spirit Airlines like the day before Game 6, because day before Game 7, because we didn't know what was going to happen in Game 6. Look, it just adds such a different element, and you get to see other reporters and see other fan bases and see other buildings and see what the world is like for them on the road, which is completely different than it is at home.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a really sick opportunity, and just a great way to add different perspective to the coverage a little bit. And obviously it's a different experience on the road than at home. So, I'm sure showing up helps kind of build that chemistry too with everybody involved, and just being able to build those relationships a little bit better. And, I think it helps everyone all around to have those more transparent relationships with that. So, shout out to you and what you've been building there, and appreciate the coverage. And, what were your thoughts on this road trip? I know, shout out Jase, Orlando Sentinel. You guys just podcasted a little bit on the Locked On Magic pod there about the road trip, the ups and downs of the season. What are your thoughts kind of, after, on the one hand, we get this, huge performance in the first game with the highlight dunk of the year from Anthony Black, and Paolo's just near perfect, like box score type of game. And then almost not maybe a no-show in London. I mean, just total opposite energy wise when it comes to those two things, which, maybe there's some context that can be expected there.
Yeah.
But, what were your kind of thoughts overall on the world tour?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it was crazy to think the Magic are going to split those 2 games. Like it's just the way, the nature of that trip. It's very hard to win both games on that trip. It just felt like more of the same. It just felt like, we thought that this win over Memphis, finally getting a second consecutive win, winning in Berlin, the way that they won, coming back from 20 down, just the confidence they showed late in games, which they've struggled a little bit late in games and in fourth quarters particularly. And they had their adversity that they had to overcome in the fourth quarter of that game. It felt like that the win in Berlin should have been this big breakthrough moment, that it should have been this, they've put the pieces together. They look confident. They got their guy back in Franz. Like everything is falling back into place. And we've seen this every single game, it feels like, where it's one step forward, one step back. It's, they had this great game, great finish, good win. And then they come back the next game and just lay an egg and don't have the same energy and don't have the same intensity. And, the defense that was so critical isn't there. And it's like, okay, how do you get this to be consistent? And that's been the struggle for the last month and a half, really, last 6 weeks, is you just don't know which Magic team's going to show up. And, I think Sunday we saw the bad version of the team show up. And so it just felt like, this is more of what we've seen for 6 weeks now. And nothing's going to really change until they break that pattern.
Yeah, that's is a great point. I mean, are they still literally on the 15 or 16 game streak of winning and losing?
They got 2 consecutive wins with the win on Thursday. Right. They beat New Orleans, but before the trip, they beat Memphis, and so they picked up.
It was 14 straight before that. Yeah, where they literally 14, alternated wins and losses.
They're 9-9 in their last 18. And if you look at their stat profile in those 18 games, and this is since the NBA Cup, I believe. If you look at, or this is since Franz's injury on December 7th, if I'm not mistaken. If you look at their stat profile, they're 16th, 17th, 18th in defensive rating. They're 24th in offensive rating. They're playing like a 35 win team. They're playing like a team that is going to struggle to make the play in. And it's a credit to their talent, and it's a credit to who they are that they've been able to be 500, because their stat profile is not a 500 team. It's a credit to what they're capable of, that they're keeping their head above water. But at the same time, it's like, okay, we know you can be a lot better, because this is bad at 9-9. Like we can all agree you're not playing great. You're still scratching out wins. Like the way I've been describing it is the Magic. If you play golf competitively, sometimes the shots just don't go your way. The ball bounces into the rough when it looked like it was on target, and you're just doing what's called scratching out pars. You're not hurting yourself. You're not helping yourself. You're just scratching out pars until you find yourself again. Credit to the Magic for scratching out pars. All the great golfers have to be able to get par when everything's going wrong. And if you're bad as par, you're going to be pretty good in the long run. The Magic's bad right now as par, but you need birdies, you need eagles, you need to score to win the tournament, and that's what the Magic are trying to do.
Yeah, and to your point, the last 20, you mentioned 9-9, 11-11 as well in their last 22 games. Just pulling up their stats since December 1st, 22nd in point differential. So they are, like you said, kind of winning above their weight, even though they're not statistically playing worse than they're winning. They're 3-2 in the last 2 weeks with the 24th point differential. So the idea that they're 500, relative, if we add a little bit of context, I think to the injuries of it all is really what it comes back to me. The idea that they haven't had Suggs most of the year. They had either one of Franz or Paolo, and Paulo's been maybe not his full self even when he was back. It's been said to death, but the injuries make a big difference. And what we were hitting on before is a lot of things are turning right now. This could be another turning point for the season, where they have a huge home stretch coming up the rest of the way. Majority of the games being home games, majority of them being easier strength of schedule. I think it's the easiest strength of schedule in the league.
I think they lost that. I think January was when they had a lot of those games. Again, they went 500 in a stretch of the season, when we were like, they're going to pick up some wins here. Losing to Washington, losing to Chicago, even Toronto's a good team. Losing to Toronto.
What do you credit for the up and down 500 of it all? Why is there one thing you think stands out for why a team will look so great in normal one night and then nothing like themselves the next?
I mean, I think some of it is, it's all them. No offense, I'm not discrediting the teams that they faced, but it's all them, and it's all they're doing essentially. It's all them being committed to what they need to do defensively. Like, this team knows how to be a good defensive team. Why they're not a good defensive team every night is beyond me. It doesn't make sense. It's getting frustrated over not getting foul calls or one little thing going wrong. And, that's just a characteristic that we haven't had to deal with this team under Jamal Mosley. Under Jamal Mosley, this team has been very tough, has been very difficult to shake. Like last year, they were so bad at 3-point shooting, and it mattered. I'm not saying it didn't matter, but it didn't matter because they were able to still defend at such a high level. They gave themselves a chance. It was just like, and so like last year, we could also say like, just shoot an average number and your defense is going to carry you through. Like, I think I had the stat last year. The Magic were like 23-8 when they shot 33% from three, and 33% would still be the worst 3-point field goal percentage in the league, but they shot it so infrequently. And when they did, they won. It was just like, you just have to be like, not even average. You just have to be respectable. And you were going to win a lot of basketball games because your defense was so good. And this year it's, the number that I keep going up to is the Magic have given up 120 points per 100 possessions, and I believe 13 games this season already. Last year, they gave up 120 points per 100 possessions in just 8. Like, we're halfway through the season, and it's 8 for a whole season versus 13 at the midpoint. And look, some of that might be offenses are better around the league. It's harder to defend. There are a lot of factors. So it's not a 1-to-1, but the number is just so stark that it's just like, okay, there's something happening here. And so I think some of it is injuries, obviously. Not having Jalen Suggs for a good chunk of the season, not having Franz Wagner for a good chunk of the season. Those two, in my book, are two all defensive team level players.
Right.
I think some of it is this is a young team. And I think subconsciously, I don't even think it's on purpose, but subconsciously, I think they believed this would be easy. You just add Desmond Bane to what you did last year, and they took some things for granted. That our defense is going to be fine. Well, like we're midway through the season, it's 12th in the league, which is good for a lot of teams, but that's not how the Magic win. That's not how this team's going to win. They've got to be
Right.
An elite level defense with how inconsistent their offense is. And their offense has been better. They're 18th, I think, in offensive rating right now. Which if you would have told me that at the beginning of the season, I'd be doing somersaults. I'd be like, oh, like Magic will be on track for 50 wins. Like, yeah, that's not where you ultimately want to be offensively, but with the defense that the Magic have, that should be enough. That should be good enough to get you where you want to go. So I just feel like the Magic, I think they downgraded more defensively than they thought. Desmond Bane to Kentavious Caldwell-Pope to Desmond Bane was always going to be a defensive downgrade. Jalen Suggs being out.
That part's just a tad underrated. I want to highlight what you just said there and just kind of fully agree with that statement. Like, Bane's a star, but not having Suggs and not having KCP to kind of sit in for Suggs has been a big difference for that defense.
Yeah. Yeah, it absolutely has. And then there's knock-on effects too. Cause Anthony Black is a good defender. I think his defense has been a little up and down this year because he's taken on more offensive responsibilities. But Anthony Black's in the starting lineup and has been in the starting lineup for a month and a half now, almost 2 months. And that means you're playing one of Tyus Jones or Jase Richardson. And, we could say a lot about Tyus's defense. I would tell you Jase tries on defense, but his defense is just as bad, if not worse, by the numbers than Tyus Jones. But that's like a huge downgrade. And last year you were playing Anthony Black in that spot. He didn't start very much. Or you were playing Gary Harris, who is also, as for all the criticism you could have of him, also a plus defender. And so I think part of it is they don't have as many plus defenders as they had last year. And they didn't get quite the trade-off of, we'll trade some plus defenders for better offensive players. They're not getting the offensive impact that they were hoping for from a Tyus Jones, to some extent from a Desmond Bane. And so I think there's just been some calculus that the equation hasn't balanced in that regard.
Yeah, I think, I agree with pretty much everything you just said, especially with the consistency of the defense there. And it's probably been the biggest surprise because, like you said, they've been top two without thinking for 2 years straight, and there are a lot of things that go into that, and you just highlighted a ton of them. One stretch, I think that they, kind of maybe were the best version of themselves so far, or at least the best ratings, was that Franz stretch where Paolo was out and Franz and the defense kind of found themselves. Now Paolo was there for the first few games of that stretch, and then he got hurt. They went 12-4. They had the 8th point differential, 8th offense, and 8th defense for like a nice 20-game stretch there. Sorry, 15-game stretch there, and that was a little earlier in the season. But they had a little more Suggs, and glass half full. I really think the way you see this team season turning around is like a handful of those things falling back into place that you just mentioned. Like Suggs is questionable to return as soon as Thursday night against the Hornets. He's had the like a nuclear plus minus impact rating.
Yeah.
Like he's clearly this like game changer when he's on the floor. And I think part of that is because of the pecking order it creates. Like everyone just like when everyone's available, the game, there's just so many options. The game should be so much easier.
He's a two-way player. Like I think everyone focuses so much on his defense, and that's right. And he brings tons of energy on defense. He's also like a 41% catch and shoot 3-point shooter this year.
Yeah. And
like
right where he was right where he was before all the injuries, he was like a spark plug 3-point shooter by that time.
He's their volume 3-point shooter. It hasn't been Desmond Bane. It was Jalen Suggs. And so they've lost a lot on both ends by not having Jalen Suggs out there.
For sure. And, the injuries are what they are. He's just, you want to see these guys stay healthy for all at once to really see what it looks like. Because of that pecking order, you end up with some of those guys back in their role. You have Suggs as the 4th option, starting, defending at point of attack, and doing the secondary connector handoff shooting stuff off of the Paolo and Franz and Baines downhill creation. You have Anthony Black off the bench, 6-man, like bringing in one of your best defenders. There was a stat a little bit earlier in the season where AB was like top 5 in how often he guarded the other team's best player. And he was like, he's basically been the most utilized primary defender in the league, or one of them, along with all the big strides he's made offensively, on and off the ball, dunking and all the threes that he's been up to. And, Mo Wagner coming back, I think that could be a game changer for somebody like Tyus Jones too, along with the entire Magic bench, just kind of having a natural pick and roll partner. That seems to always help Orlando's second unit.
On top of that, the Magic are like 24th in the league in bench scoring. Like they're bottom of the league in bench scoring.
And Mo Wagner was number 1 of all bench scoring bigs. So you
like
get him back.
This is another one of my favorite stats. Last year, before Mo Wagner's injury, so 25 games or so, the Magic were 8th, I believe, in the league in bench scoring, or like 4th, 5th, 6th, like top 10 in bench scoring. Yeah. After his injury last year, they dropped, and again, lots of injuries, but they dropped to like 22nd. And so like one of the reasons the Magic were so good in 2024 is they had I believe the second highest scoring bench in the league. That's something they're missing still. And they gutted their bench a little bit to get Desmond Bane. There's no getting around that. You can say what you want about Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. You can say what you want about Cole Anthony. There are plenty of good reasons why the Magic moved on from those guys. But they cut into their depth a little bit to get Desmond Bane. And Bane's mostly worked out. I think Bane's been pretty good. The shooting hasn't been what everyone hoped for, but he's been pretty good otherwise. Maybe the defense hasn't been the level that they were hoping for either, but he's been pretty good otherwise.
Yeah, I think Bane's borderline all-star case with some of his scoring performances, but and really just like because mostly that said, mostly because he's probably been the most consistent all season for Orlando, despite all three. Like if you had to pick a star this year for the 6th seed Magic,
he's been available.
He's been there. He's been there, and he has just enough marquee moments with the game winners. But I'm with you that the defense. What's interesting with the defense is I think he makes up for some of the individual defense by like leading the league in some of these hustle play stats, like loose ball recoveries. He's near the top of the league in that one. And you always see him diving on the floor for an exciting hustle play like that. So it's a little bit like Mo Wagner, where there's some other guys that are there for like individual defense and with their length and defensive instincts. But Mo Wagner and Bane are almost there, and Suggs to obviously too, doing the hustle play stuff too. So it kind of goes hand in hand.
And kind of to your point earlier about guys kind of falling into their correct roles. That's, I think, a thing with Bane as well, because Franz and Paolo have been out for so long, and because Suggs has been out, Bane has had to be on the ball a lot more. And so one of the reasons why I don't think he's getting the 3-point shots he needs to get up is he's had to be an initiator. And look, that might be an inherent flaw in the Magic's offense, is that it requires everyone to be an initiator and doesn't do enough to like get a great 3-point shooter like Desmond Bane a 3-point look. But the Magic also don't have a lot of guys who can initiate. Desmond Bane is one of them. Is he the most consistent at it? No, but he is like one of the few options they have. And so, he's had to be on the ball. And so hopefully as the Magic get healthier, they'll be able to work with him and get him those 3-point looks that they were hoping to get him when they acquired him in the offseason. So long way to go still this season, but yeah, there's still a lot to work on, clearly.
Yeah, and the that's another good point with everyone just kind of going into their role. I would definitely like to see them run, I guess, more sets that just set him up as a 3-point shooter. There have been like one new wrinkle that I want to see more of, where they're like running him around just one screen and hitting him on the catch around that screen, and right when he gets it, it's almost like a handoff in stride from across the half court, and he like instantly rolls right into it, like a pick and roll situation with that roller without having to do all that much. I've liked those sets that they've kind of have felt like a new wrinkle recently. But he's really has been great as a driver, as a downhill bump and finish guy, hunting contact creator, like not necessarily expected. And that is like, one way to get everyone else going. He has that natural point guard self of wanting to set the table for everybody. But like, I'm still in agreement with what you're saying, just in general, that like this Magic offense really just doesn't really need him to set the table as much as be that spark plug nuclear 3-point shooter that just lets it rip for 9 threes a game every game and kind of builds out from there. So, maybe with everyone fully healthy, you get more Franz and Paolo downhill and more Suggs and Bane kind of spreading the floor and connecting and hitting those catch and shoots. And that's where, throw in Black and Wendell, who I was just writing about, it's actually Black and Wendell and De Silva who are leading the team in dunks and threes this season, if you combine dunks and total threes. And that's because of those kind of closeout opportunities and the rim roll lobs and the off-ball cuts and the off-ball catch and shoots, the pick and pops that all these guys run off of the creation of Bane and Banchero and Franz. And Bane actually is 4th on that stat, and it's all threes. He only has 1 dunk on the season and like 69 threes or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, Bane isn't a big dunker.
That's interesting as well.
Oh no, I think there's
he's not dunking.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, he's not dunking at all. He only had the 1 on the season.
but I remember they said this during the Amazon broadcast on Sunday that like Bane is among guards leading the league in layups, and he does. It's a lot of those like little scoop layups that I personally hate. Like he kind of has to do it to protect the ball a little bit because he's small.
There's some games he gets it going. The bump and finish. There's some games he gets it going, with the bump and finish and the finger rolls, and when he gets that going with the 3-point shot, when he gets both going, we've seen some of these like 38-point blow-ups.
Yeah. And you were saying before in the playoffs.
Yeah, for sure. And the 6 seed Magic right now, 23-19, but they're 8-5 games back overall of the 1 seed, but only 3 games back of the 2 seed. The Celtics are 26-16. And, there's a handful of teams, technically, let's say the Bulls 9 seed are only 2.5 games back of the 6 seed Magic. So from 2 to 11, we're looking at a difference of 5.5 games in the East. That's a very easy opportunity to turn things around and, maybe technically fall in the play-in if things go worse. But I feel like everything other than, missing 4 stars to injury has gone wrong. Like everything has gone wrong other than like literally missing all the stars to injury. Like the idea that you have 3 or 4 young stars also means that if you're missing 1 or 2, you still have 1 or 2 where you can base a new team rotation around on any given night and at least have two reliable scorers. So these are all the benefits of kind of going all in on these guys. Is when they're together, it could be really special. It could be, who knows what it looks like. But
Yeah,
when you're missing a few, we haven't really seen it yet.
Yeah, we haven't seen this team play at their best or get a chance to really build rhythm. Like the Franz injury was or the Paolo injury was 12 games into the season. Like we have not seen this team play at all. Like just plain and simple, just have not seen them play at all. And so I think the hope is that, okay, they kept their head above water. Like where last year they faced all these injuries. They didn't completely fall apart, but they fell way behind the pace. And now it's like, okay, we've kept our head above water through all this. We haven't killed ourselves. We haven't done what we need to do, but we haven't killed ourselves. Let's get all these pieces together. Suggs, whether he plays Thursday or not, clearly very close to coming back. And let's see if we can get all these pieces together and meet our expectations, because the East didn't run away from us. Like if this were the West, I think they'd be in trouble. But it's the East. No one's running away from them. Everybody's got flaws. And I think, like, again, you just got to get into the playoffs, give yourself the best opportunity. Even if this team's the 4 seed, you still got a good chance, I think, of winning your first round playoff series. And so just put yourself in a position to win and do your best later in the season.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think of Coach Mosley so far this season, and just kind of his impact and the coaching staff as a whole? Kind of an overhauled staff with some new faces, Joe Prunty, God Shamgod, just to name a few. But what have you liked from kind of the new offensive style, the rotations, it's to his fairness, all these injuries do affect who's available every night, but he's still got a job to do.
Yeah, I would say this. I think Jamal Mosley has always been very, very good at seeing the big picture. Like he is always been exceedingly good at saying, this is where we as a team, we as a group, we as an organization are going to go. And I'm going to coach this team to that level, even if it maybe costs me a little bit in the short term. I think that we all asked him to change the offense a little bit. He's still sticking to his principles. The offense is still a lot of the same, but the idea of like, hey, we need to do better getting out in transition. And the fact that the Magic are getting more transition opportunities, they are more efficient in transition. They were like, not only did they not get out on transition a lot last year, they were like one of the worst teams finishing in transition. They've been better about that. They're still I think they're still 6th in the league in fast break points per game. And so he pinned on something that was like, this is an area that we can improve very easily. That'll be a little bit of a boost. Now, I do think that there are things, I do think that Mosley has been a little slow to adjust to kind of a new reality. I think very early on in the season, especially, he was playing Paolo like he was all NBA Paolo that we saw at the end of last year. And you could just watch Paolo and be like, that's not who he is. Like you gotta help him out a little bit. You got to get him the ball in spots, protect him from areas that he's struggling with for whatever reason he's struggling with them. And it just felt like you were kind of banging your head saying like, we're just going to do what we've always done and it's going to work. Like I would even say now, like you don't compromise your defensive principles, but something's clearly not working defensively that needs to be tweaked a little bit. And you can't just go out and say, and I'm not saying that Jamal's going out and saying this, it's just that's the feeling. You can't just go out and say like, well, we did this successfully last year. Just do that. Like, why aren't we doing that? You got to make little tweaks to fit your personnel. And like Desmond Bane is a perfect example of this. There is no reason, even if he's on the ball a lot more, that Desmond Bane should be taking fewer than 5 threes a game. Like there's frankly no reason you should be taking fewer than 6 threes a game. And it's even something as simple as, yes, your offense is very read-based, and that's fine. I do think that that's ultimately advantageous and has helped this team grow in a lot of ways. But you also got to make sure you're running plays specifically set up to get guys the ball in spots that are going to help them and to keep them in rhythm almost. Like Desmond doesn't take enough threes. He's just out of rhythm when he does get the open spot up threes that the Magic need him to hit. And so it's like, run a bring back screen, run a play where Desmond goes away, comes back, gets a three at the top of the key, even if that's a one pass shot possession, like that's going to be enough that you can run some stuff off of that. You can run split actions off of that. You can run some other actions off of that if you set that up properly. And again, Desmond Bain shooting better than he was earlier in the season. Teams still respect the heck out of him as a 3-point shooter. I'm a very big believer on this with Paolo. Like Paolo is this super gifted player. He has so many tools in his tool chest. And I get it. Franz wasn't playing for a long time. You don't have a lot of creators and initiators, but Paolo just isn't a good, give him the ball at the top of the key, let him create and get into a mid-range jumper. That's not what he's good at. He's been better about passing out of those and picking his spots better about those. But sometimes you need to especially like when you're struggling, when you're like maybe giving up a little bit of a run, or you've had like 2 or 3 misses in a row, you need to call up a set and say like, hey, we're getting the ball to Paolo on the block or the mid post. And that's going to be a spot where he can get the ball without taking a dribble, read the defense, make a play, make a quick decision, like spin off a guy, get to the rim. Like Paolo's just so good when he's making quick decisions. When he stops and starts like Carmelo jab stepping people, that's when he makes all his mistakes and does everything that everybody hates. And I think it's on the coaching staff to do a little bit better of a job reining in some of the excesses and making sure guys get the ball in spots where they're designed to score, especially Paolo, especially Bain. And if you fix those things, everything else is going to flow a little bit naturally. Everyone's going to relax a little bit, take a deep breath, because you'll have something easy for them to digest. And you still trust them to make decisions. Like if Paolo gets the ball on the block and a double team comes, he's not going to force anything. He's going to pass the ball. He wants to do the right thing. If there's one thing we could say about Paolo this year, like it's been a good year for Paolo in that he's not forcing anything. His usage rate is down. His field goal attempts are down. Like he needs to he's almost passing on too many shots, but he's trying to do the right things. Like he has listened to, whether it's the critics or whatever, like he has watched his game enough to say like, I need to be better at this. And he's a young guy. He's trying to find a balance between how do I get my own and how do I keep others involved? And he hasn't found that balance yet. And I don't think that's a reason to give up on him. I don't think that's a reason to say, oh, he's not worth the max contract. Every star has to figure this out. He's still figuring it out. But the coaching staff can still do a lot more to make things easier for him and easier for everyone else. And it's just clear, like, there are just these long stretches where it just feels like everything is hard. And that's what that's what I think the coaching staff has to do a better job tempering and figuring out. And, some of that might be like, yeah, you need a point guard that can stop everything and say like, hey, we got to get a shot in a good spot. Here's the ball in your spot. Go for it. It could be as simple as that. It could be as simple as the coaching staff making some adjustments at how they run things. It's probably more complex than that, but it just feels like it feels like the coaching staff isn't necessarily, I don't think it's necessarily hurting anybody, but it's not helping. And when the team is struggling like they've been struggling, not helping is not good.
Yeah, for sure. And to some of those points there, the Magic's offense, as you said, 19th overall on the season, 26th in half-court shooting efficiency. It's completely reliant on free throw rate, where they're second in free throw rate, first in the league in actual total free throws drawn every game, like 28 or 29 a game. Top 10 offensive rebounding, top 5 defensive rebounding, and top 12 in not turning the ball over, playing safer with the ball.
Been one of the big changes this year.
For sure.
Credit to the team on that.
Yeah, and that seems like, maybe Joe Prunty effect, a little Tyus Jones effect, Paolo Banchero's decision-making to your effect. Anthony Black is, has improved as a playmaker. And the defense, is still 13th overall. They're still 11th at forcing turnovers, and the top 5 rebounding is big. And yeah, that was the big difference. The turnover forcing, like the Magic are at their best, like a lot of teams with their archetype, a Pistons or a Thunder even, forcing turnovers and running off of them. And that's just bread and butter, easy defense, like the identity of this team. And when you're missing Suggs, you're missing a pick 6 every game. You're missing, his chase down block every game. You're missing some of those point guard things where you mentioned where maybe they run just a Suggs Banchero pick and roll, and then you have Bain and Franz ready to attack the closeouts off the ball a little bit and do what they do. And, you can do it in a whole mess of different ways with pick and pop. Anytime they run a pick and pop with a guard screening, I love it because one thing around the league, it seems like they're not calling moving screens. So it's kind of something that the guards can get away with a little bit more, where they just run right by and don't even set it and pretend and slip right out. And then you got Bane or Suggs like popping, or Black now too. That's been really effective. But, this is a team that relies on free throws to score and defense to create opportunities and rebounds on the glass to create second chance putbacks. That's another thing they're great at with Wendell and Goga. And this team relies on hustle plays for all of their identity. So to your point, like if they don't bring the hustle every other night, they're just not going to show up in so many ways, because they rely on that energy for almost everything they do. So if they don't really bring that kind of next year energy every night, which is tough in an 82 game season, but they have done for multiple years now, that's just going to affect them top to bottom, and it force them into a half court shooting team, which is their worst thing. So until they kind of create or find a system that creates good looks in the half court through all of these players, that's obviously what they've been trying to do. And they have found obviously some success doing it so far, but until that becomes a full reliable thing, I think what will really help this team is everyone just kind of knowing where to be and what to do and doing those things 1,000 times, instead of like figuring it out and trying different things where everyone, it feels just a little misfit role wise, even though they clearly have so many ancillary skills. This should be a complementary sum of its parts when it's all said and done and when everyone's together. So to me, there's also like not
the gears aren't turning at the same rate yet.
Yeah, and I think the expectations can also take just a little bit of a break, even though there was a huge trade to bring Bane in. That's as much an investment for the next 5 years as it is about this season. It's not we have to, that wasn't a win now title move this year as much as let's get competitive playoff experience and contend for the next 5 years ideally, right?
Yeah, like I've been telling people, like, this season is about pointing toward a championship. It's about getting out of the first round first and foremost, and seeing like, we can win a playoff series. We're good enough to win a playoff series. Like I think we believe this team is, because of the way they played against Cleveland 2 years ago, but you got to do it. And then it's about getting into that second round playoff series against teams that are assumedly fighting for a championship, and saying, okay, this is how far we are from beating Cleveland or beating Detroit or beating New York. Beating those teams that we all agree are like, okay, that team is going to the Eastern Conference Finals, that team is going to the finals, and seeing how close you are. Like, back to the Mosley point, like, I don't think the Magic are like firing Jamal Mosley anytime soon. Like, he's going to finish the season. That's just the way this team operates. They're going to give him the healthy roster. He's going to get them to the playoffs. Again, like, as much as we all want to complain about how the Magic are playing, same record as last year, same position they were in last year. They're still within striking distance of all of their goals. Like, let's look at the complete picture before we make a judge. Because again, like, I believe Mosley's just really good at seeing the forest for the trees. He sees the whole picture and where you're going. But having said that, there is certainly a world where the Magic win their playoff series and then lose in 5 games to New York or 5 games to Boston and don't look like they're a championship team, or you look at it and say like, yeah, this offense isn't going to cut it. We need some new ideas. It just isn't clicking anymore.
And the Magic happened to New York. What you're describing, like,
York,
just happened to
Cleveland in 24. Like, it just may be time. He may have reached his expiration date. Yeah, it just may be like they're missing something to get over the edge, and that something is maybe some new ideas and a new coach. And obviously that hire would be super important, but we got to see where this season ends up. There's still so much in front of this team. This team is still very capable of doing things. I think Jeff Weltman's going to have to revamp the bench a little bit in the offseason before this team gets serious. Like, Tyus Jones was a nice addition, but we all understood his flaws. And even if you're playing well, I would tell you, like, he can't play in the playoffs. He's just not going to be usable in the playoffs. You're going to be hiding too much for him. There's still a lot of work to do to get this team where it needs to go. And the question is just, how close are we? Is this a quick fix? Is this just about experience? Or is there a need for a bigger overhaul?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think the team would have to like really look uncompetitive or like hopeless or lost to
Yeah.
reach like that tipping point anytime soon. And I agree. At the very least, the rest of the season, and a playoff run, and a playoff disappointment would be disappointing, but that's the breaks of the NBA. You never know. So
Failure is part of the process. I have to
that
tell, I
too,
have to remind
that
everybody
too,
about this. Like all the teams that win championships, they fail for multiple years. And there's
for sure.
always a bit of doubt. And there's always a turning point where management can decide, oh, we got to blow this thing up or reset this thing somehow, or say, we're going to stick with it. We believe in this group. We just need to tweak things.
Yeah,
And like, Oklahoma City lost they were the higher seeded team, lost in the second round to Denver 2 years ago. Like they needed
yeah.
that. How many times did Boston fail in the conference finals before they had their breakthrough and won a championship? Like failure is part of the process. You've got to get some playoff scars. You got to learn. You don't learn anything without doing it. And you gotta fail. And it's about your response to failure that determines how good your team ultimately is.
Absolutely. I think the Magic fans' perspective, they should be still in the experience mode of this is an awesome ride, all this new talent. Anything could still come out of this. Let's
It's
just
frustrating.
see
Like
who
be frustrated. The
pops,
frustration is fair. Like they're not
Yeah.
doing what they need to do. But it's
Yeah.
not don't hit the panic button either.
Right, exactly. Like there are too many promising young prospects on this team with complementary skill sets that fit the identity that Jeff Weltman and Jamal Mosley want to build. There's continuity top to bottom. I'm gonna hit you with a couple speed round questions if you want here to end the
Okay.
podcast on. Just a few topics on my mind here. Let's start with Anthony Black. Are we going to see any award from Anthony Black, such as Sixth Man of the Year or Most Improved, or possibly even AB in the dunk contest after such a huge dunk overseas?
Yeah. I don't think AB is going to be in the dunk contest.
Okay.
I think because he's just not a trick dunker. Like he's a
true.
forceful
They're
dunker.
all breakaway.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're
he's
all
not
like
doing,
breakaway powers.
I don't think he has tricks up his sleeve. I will say this, like, I think there is a better than good chance the Magic do not have any representation at All-Star Weekend.
That's wild,
The three candidates are Anthony Black for the dunk contest. I don't think that's going to happen. Desmond Bane for the 3-point contest. Maybe that happens. Or Tristan Da Silva and the Rising Stars. And Tristan Da Silva's had a nice sophomore year, but I wouldn't say he's like amazing sophomore year. The Magic could very easily get that whole weekend off, which would probably be good for the Magic overall.
Yeah.
Especially since they'll be heading back out to Los Angeles anyway.
Yeah.
I think Anthony Black has a good shot at winning Most Improved Player. I don't know if he's going to get it just because the Magic are just kind of this anonymous team. If Orlando ends up like making this big push over the second half of the season, maybe they finish third in the East, and Anthony Black still averages 17, 18, 19 points per game with some 30-point games coming off the bench for the Magic when Jalen Suggs comes back, then I think there's a very good chance that he wins the award. Those awards are all about flash and who's making noise. And again, the Magic are just kind of this anonymous team, so they've got to do something as a team to make noise. And Anthony Black's got to be a part of that in order for him to win those awards.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how six-man works, but he has started so many games. I'm not sure how many more. He's got to be getting close by now. But I was going to say, if he keeps those averages and stays under that number, that one is the one I really think he could pop out at.
He's been, again, but it's the same thing. Like, he's got to play on a team that matters at the end of the season. If Orlando's a 6 seed, no one cares.
Yeah,
if
team
they're
needs
the
to be
3
top
seed
4
and they like have this big national TV win somewhere, then people will care. And he plays big. Like him doing that dunk, he's on everybody's radar now. Now he's on the radar.
That was really that was the point. Is he had his marquee moment. People know his name in the NBA world. They know he's having this breakout season. Yeah. Normally that's kind of the most improved candidate there, but nowadays it goes to like the new first comer all-star instead, like someone
it'll go to like
Jalen
Johnson, who's going to be an all-star, but Atlanta's terrible. Yeah. But Atlanta's terrible now. So
right.
Who
so
knows?
There's that too. And just for reference, AB is listed at 6th on the odds on BetMGM for both of those awards. So he's in the running, and like you said, a few more splashes for the team and him. who knows? He could kind of get honored by the NBA that way, which would obviously be cool just to recognize his breakout season that way. One more quick hitter, or next quick hitter anyway. Let's just talk a quick trade idea. Are any Magic players on, let's say, available? Would you say three names that pop, or some names pop out for me? So let me just throw them out there: Goga Batadze, Tyus Jones, and Jonathan Isaac. Just long term, might not be in the exact Orlando Magic plans. However, I also want to say, Coach, to your point earlier, Coach Mosley does a great job of giving everyone on his roster an opportunity when the time calls for it. Where if a guy goes down, you're going to get a starting role, you're going to get starter minutes and show what you can do. And Goga Batadze is one guy that takes advantage of that every time for Wendell. He's more of like a spot starter, third team first stringer than he is a backup, because he hardly plays with the backups unless it was necessity this year. Which, one last thing on the fit is Isaac getting to play with spread centers like Mo Wagner again and Wendell instead of him and Goga down low. That's another guy who could benefit from the fit. So these are guys that like all could benefit from some of the rotation coming back, but also with Noah Penda and Jase Richardson, who I'm going to ask you about in a minute, with their emergence, these guys might be a little bit available. That's how the NBA works. Do you have any thoughts there?
Yeah, those three are the guys that I have like candidates of, like, these are the guys the Magic are probably going to try and move. And again, like, Orlando's main trade deadline goal this year is to get under the tax. Like, nothing else matters. Nothing else is important. They're trying to get under the tax. They're about $5.6 million over the tax line. Getting under the tax delays starting the repeater clock by 1 year. The Magic are going to be a tax team for the next 5 years. There's no reason to cost yourself more money. There's no reason to do that. With Jase Richardson and his emergence, like Tyus Jones, if they can find someone to just dump his salary to, do it, get a couple top 55 protected seconds and be done with it. And that's worth it for saving all the money that you're going to save. So that's kind of the only thing I see the Magic doing. I just don't think, unless someone is really enamored with Jonathan Isaac. Jonathan Isaac makes what, $14.5 million? Getting under the tax means you're getting a guy that's worth $8-9 million. You can get someone of value to help your team. So if you can find a Jonathan Isaac taker, I think it's time. Like, he's okay. He's not the level that he was a few years ago. His offense is just a huge drag. If you could find someone of value, go for it. But otherwise, like, it's just it's pure accounting at the deadline. I don't think the Magic are trying to do anything other than accounting.
Yeah, that all adds up, and saving money is no joke. That is a real goal for these teams, especially this Magic team. And that, with all these big contracts coming up, I mean, they got to be as prepared and flexible as possible for that. And kind of dumping those three deals and salary dumps, in a sense, is one way to do it. I don't know if the Kings are looking to trade Malik Monk for Isaac or anything like that, but that'd be a fun one. I don't know if there's enough.
That's not enough money.
You might have to combine. A few of those deals.
You have to do Isaac and Howard, and I don't think that gets you under the tax. At the end of the day, that's the number one goal, is get under the tax.
That's the goal more than talent this year. I could definitely see that as well. Just because with all there's almost not enough room for everyone to play. So getting under the tax and opening up some opportunity with rookies who have proven they're going to be good every chance they get, which is the transition here. Impressions of Jason Penda as rookies, and, how soon do you think they could be full-time, just rotation players in this team going forward?
Yeah, like, they're both, I think Jamal Mosley trusts them both when he has to play them. Like, I've said this for a long time, like, when Jase Richardson's played, good things happen. And like, what I've been saying is, like, I get trusting Tyus Jones, and we're at a point where Tyus Jones isn't going to turn the corner, probably. Maybe you're just playing him to showcase him and see if he can have one good game to convince someone to trade for him. But you need a plan to play Jase Richardson. Like, he has proven, like, he will make enough good things happen for whatever shortcomings he has as a rookie, whatever consistency as a rookie. He's going to make enough good things happen that you need a plan to play him. You need to get him minutes. You need to just see if it works. And, to Jamal Mosley's credit, every time he's played, it works. Like, good things typically happen. He's even gotten to playing Jase and Tyus together, which I would say is a terrible idea. But if you look at the numbers, it's like a 120 offensive rating and like a 117 defensive rating, but that's still coming out ahead. That's still positive at the end of the day. So like they're trying. Can they try a little bit more? Sure. But even with Noah Penda, like Penda is, I'm really enamored with Penda. Like I think Noah Penda, I'm really curious what their plan is with Penda. Cause like I could see them trying to make him like what they wanted Jonathan Isaac to be, as the small ball 5 who's just big and agile. I could see them like saying like, hey, he's got broad shoulders. Let's get him stronger. Obviously, every rookie needs to get stronger, but let's cut some weight, make him faster. And he's already so big that if we could get him to play a little faster, he's going to be really tough for a lot of guys to cover. His 3-point shooting is a lot better than I thought it was going to be. You could still tell how raw he is and how he's still figuring things out, but his instincts are typically so good. Now, he still makes a ton of rookie mistakes. He makes a lot of rookie mistakes. And it feels like you're either getting amazing Penda or unplayable Penda right now, which is, again, he's a rookie. You kind of expect that. You have to live with that. But to me, he is such a fascinating player to watch and such a fascinating player to say, what can this kid be? What can this kid be in his career? Like it feels like there's still so much open. So I'm very curious to see what they do with him this summer. Again, I tell people this all the time. You don't draft rookies for their rookie year. You draft them for 5 years. I'm very curious to see what he turns into moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. They've both been super impressive every time they take the court. Like clear, good role players that were drafted for specific reasons. I think like I've mentioned before in the pod, I talked to a scout, Roshan Putlori, who highlighted them as like great closeout attacking prospects before the Magic drafted them because of, Jase's quickness and Penda's strength and their ability to spread the floor from 3, but still get downhill with both of those skills. And when you think about just kind of adding different skill sets, complementing, the big wing downhill stars like that, just more guys who can attack closeouts with different skills that can spread the floor, hold their own defensively, switch a little bit, make good dribble pass shoot decisions. Jase more offensive minded, Penda maybe more defensive minded at the moment, but both still capable on the other end to at least bring effort. Jase is another hustle play guy where it's not point of attack elite defense, but he is going to make some steals and jump passes. And I do think combining those hustle play type of like gamblers with more defensive fortitude guys like your Suggs and Franz and AB and Wendell, like it creates a kind of a chaotic mix that works in Orlando's favor at its best. But we got some Penda plays going here, good and bad. He heaved one there, but just to highlight some of his play, like really excited about what he can be. And I definitely agree that he can kind of fill a multitude of roles. And now they have like an offensive versatile scorer in Da Silva and a defensive versatile defender in Penda to back up their two-way big wing stars in the front court. Like the depth is really rounding out for this roster. Last speed question, I guess. Do you think they do make a move at the deadline? And what are the expectations the rest of the season that, are pretty fair for this team?
I do think they're going to make a move at the deadline. I think it'll be a salary dump. I think they're going to find a way to get under the tax. Like whatever they have to do, they're going to do it. Like maybe it's Tyus Jones and a top 40 protected second for a top 55 protected second, like something that's just, literally like, how can we make this worth your trouble? Like for whatever it is. I do think they are going to hit the buyout market. And depending on how far under the tax they get, that's part of it. But I do think they're going to fill that 14th and 15th roster spot at some point. Like maybe they convert Orlando Robinson into a full contract, or Jamal Cain into a full contract. But I do think they'll hit the buyout market and try and find someone to kind of boost their lineup that way. Like I know a lot of Magic fans like the idea of if the Wizards, buy out Chris Middleton, go after Chris Middleton. And I think there are some pluses and minuses to that. I don't hate it. I don't love it just because Middleton can't defend anybody and defense is kind of the problem right now. I think you need to find some plus defenders somewhere. But having said that, there'll be some opportunities, I think, to add some players. I think the Magic will be attractive because I do think Orlando is going to make a run and make a push once they get healthy to start, making a run to get back into the East race. And like I do think they'll finish third, fourth, or fifth. Like I think they'll avoid the play-in. I think they'll win more than 45 games for the year. I think they're going to have a strong second half of the season. Won't be everything we all imagined. Maybe they don't get to 3. Maybe they do end up as a 5 and they have to go to Cleveland or go to Toronto or go to Philadelphia or whatever it is. But I do think they'll be in a good spot to advance out of the first round and make the most of the second half of the season.
Yeah, I'm really with that. Especially just this feels like a moment the team could have one more turning point the rest of the way where everyone's kind of finally healthy, and we might actually see, at least for now, what this team looks like with fully loaded, where you're starting Suggs, Bane, Franz, Paolo, Wendell as a starting unit. That's one of the top 5 in the NBA. Every time they take the court, it puts AB and the Tyus Mo Wagner pick and roll with Isaac as a defensive anchor and these 2 young forwards, De Silva and Penda off the bench, and just kind of makes everything a little bit easier and a little more known role-wise for Orlando. The buy-in part is interesting. I definitely could see how, this team at its full strength should be running and gunning, exciting to play with, forcing turnovers, out on fast breaks, and also full of young talent that is relatively fun to play with because they move the ball and look and all genuinely root for each other. And you can tell from the sideline how close a lot of this team is. So I'm with you. I think things should turn up. At the very least, we should see what this team really looks like and get more of an answer of, what this unit looks like fully whole. And, it might not, it's definitely not as seamless as everyone thought it would be, just dropping a shooter like Bane into the half court. But once everyone's actually healthy, maybe it will start to feel a little more seamless between all the reps everyone's had. And who knows, maybe there's always a blessing in disguise in basketball somewhere where like all these reps on the ball for Bane could be really helpful come playoff time for one play or something where you never really thought we needed a driving bump and finish finger roll from Bane to hit a clutch one. But, he's already had a game winner that way too. I forget against who, but he's done it that way earlier in the season too. So, he's got that part of it, but good things for Orlando here. Any parting thoughts on the season that we didn't get to?
No, I think we covered it pretty exhaustively. I mean, we'll see
No
what they
doubt.
look like as they get back here, and again, it feels like the story changes every day. So it's just looking for some consistency. Like that's not inconsistency.
Yeah.
Like the only
Yeah.
thing consistent is the inconsistency right now.
Right. Especially, and that's life in the NBA, but it is funny how, 10 games in, everything's fallen down, 10 games after, everything's figured out, and now 10 games in again, it's all crashing and burning. So, they're due for a 10-game upswing here until next time, but I appreciate you taking the time, Phil. It's been fun and interesting to learn a little bit more about this Magic season and your process and your journey to start the Orlando Magic Daily site. Be sure to check out all of Phil's work at the site on the Locked On Magic pod as well. Thanks a lot, Phil. Can't wait to keep up covering the team with you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, Ryan.
Have a good one. Learning Basketball is a Swish Theory podcast hosted from Beyond the Arcade. Hey, that's me. You can find my work on Twitter, YouTube, Substack, and check out the team's writing at theswishtheory.com.